Yo guys, I got a spark so I'm going to use to ignite the fire for a brand new video to where I'm going to be returning to an old series on a channel of mine known as Schooled, the game show where I took the battle classes from Skylanders Imaginators and made a video themed around them. Now in the previous episode, which was a long whiles back, we put all of the MCU characters into battle classes from Skylanders Imaginators. However, for this video we're going to do a similar based theme to where we're going to take all of the Super Smash Bros. Characters from the newest iteration of the franchise, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and we are going to put every single one of such characters into a battle class of their own out of the 10 battle classes in Skylanders Imaginators to choose from. Now we're going to go through this in roster order, that's going from left to right and going down in rows, just as you would X, Y in terms of coordinates on a grid. Starting with the top row, so that would be Mario, and finishing with a bottom row, which would of course be the Mii fighters. So at that, we are going to get into this without further ado. However, one thing you should notice that I'm not including Echo Fighters as a separate thing, since they have the exact same gameplay as their original counterparts, and these battle classes are based more on the gameplay than what they are on the personality of the character. However, that will be taken into consideration for a lot of these characters. It just so happens to be Echo Fighters in particular, their personality doesn't distinguish them in terms of the battle class potential from the original form of a character, so that's why I'm not including Echo Fighters separately to the main ones, since they fit in the same battle classes. The main ones are the same. Starting us off with Mario, he'd be none other than a brawler, since of course he has some great combos, particularly as part of his aerial game, and since he is so combo based, the only suitable class is Brawler, since all of the other classes either use projectiles or are much more focused on power. Mario doesn't really have either of those, going for more light-based attacks that combo together much more easily, and of course he isn't a very projectile-based character, making Mario the perfect Brawler. Donkey Kong, on the other hand, would be a smasher, since he's a heavyweight character, meaning that he specializes in hitting his opponents as hard as he can to deal more damage, hoping to KO his opponents much sooner with much fewer hits. Of course, as a result, his hits are slower, but of course the increased damage makes up for that, and that's exactly what a smasher prioritizes, so that's why Donkey Kong fits the smasher so well. Link at first was pretty tricky for me, because I was originally going to make him a bow slinger due to the fact that he has so many projectiles and he actually has a bow for one of his special moves. However, his sword and his shield far outweigh these special moves, since they are using all of his neutral attacks in some form or another. And not only does Link fit a knight aesthetically, but there's also the fact that in his respective games, he is the hero of the games, the hero of Hyrule even, because he sets out on a huge quest in order to save the world of Hyrule from the evil Ganondorf, and so of course those personality traits of heroicness and selflessness is very much what makes a knight, and that's why Link fits into the knight class so well. Samus, without a doubt, would be a bazooka, since she is a weapon specialist, having several different explosive weaponries and guns in order to defeat her enemies from afar with very powerful weaponry, hence why Samus is indeed the perfect bazooka. Yoshi, just like Mario, prioritizes getting some great aerial combos rather than focusing on power play, hence why Yoshi is also a brawler. Now, Kirby fits several classes. He could be a brawler because he has several combos. He could also be a smasher, since he utilizes a hammer in order to deal some high damage upon his enemies, as well as a ground pound attack, which, as I said before, sacrifices speed in favor for power and dealing a lot of damage and pulverizing his enemies. However, Kirby, I feel like, is a knight because he has a sword as one of his special abilities, and when it comes down to his personality, he is, of course, the hero of Dreamland, who sets out to defeat the evil King Dedede and of course save the residents of said Dreamland. So him being the hero and him being so heroic, you could say, makes him a knight. Plus his final smash has a giant sword to it, and so the utilization of such a sword also fits him as a knight in terms of his weaponry. Fox is a quick shot because he's awfully speedy, even in terms of his combos, which could classify him as a brawler even. He focuses on speed, not only on his tilts, but of course on firing his gun and dashing through the air. And in his respective games, he pilots tanks and ships as such, which of course have a huge emphasis on speed, so speed being a main part of this character's, well, character and personality makes him very fitting of the quickshot class indeed. Pikachu would be a sorcerer since he summons lightning, and of course that's a big part to not only his character design but his gameplay as well, so a sorcerer is very fitting for Pikachu. Luigi, just like his brother, has a huge emphasis on combos and not necessarily emphasizing power over such combos, making him a perfect brawler, just like his brother. Every single one of Ness's special moves requires summoning of something or another, whether it's PK Fire, or it's PK Freeze, or it's PK Lightning, and even his final smash involves him raining down stars from the sky, which is a big summoning-based attack, so of course Ness makes a perfect sorcerer. Captain Falcon is another character that fits into several battle classes, including the Quickshot class, since he's got some very speedy moves for his gameplay, and of course, just like Fox, he utilizes some very quick vehicles, making him a bit of a speed-based character in his respective franchise. However, he could also be a smasher, since he prioritizes in getting sweet spots which deal huge chunks of damage. However, those attacks aren't necessarily slow and as powerful as normal smashers, and that makes him a brawler more so than anything, since he prioritizes combos just like the brawlers before him, hence why brawler is the most fitting class for Captain Falcon. Jigglypuff is just generally a very hard one to place, so by default I've placed her as a brawler, since she does have some good combos up her sleeve that she can utilize, but really brawler is the only battle class she can fit into. Peach, once again, is a brawler purely because there's no other class that I find that fitting for her, and she does prioritize combos, particularly in terms of her aerial game with her fluttering attacks as such. So with how great her combo game is, and the fact that she doesn't fit into any of the battle classes, makes her the perfect brawler. Bowser is pretty slow, but he makes up for that with sheer power, and with him being a heavyweight in the game, of course, he's going to focus on absolutely pulverizing his enemies, so naturally that makes him a smasher. The Ice Climbers could have easily been a brawler due to the combos that they can create, however I find them to be swashbucklers, since they do have two weapons, even if it is shared over two different characters, but these characters work in such great unison with one another, and their agility is unparalleled to the point to where their gameplay fits more of a swashbuckler despite being two different characters. So once again, it's the unison and the agility that these characters share, and the fact that they do have two weapons, even if it is shared over two characters, that makes them swashbucklers. Sheik is agile, sneaky, and tricks opponents into falling into her traps, making her the perfect ninja. Zelda's specials and her grabs are all about summoning things like explosions and knights to come forth and help her out in battle, and that's exactly the very definition of the sorcerer, making Zelda the perfect candidate for this battle class. Dr. Mario might have a very similar moveset to regular Mario, but he does prioritize power over the combo games, since his attacks are slightly slower but more powerful than regular Mario's, hence why I feel like he should be a smasher rather than a brawler. Just like his evolved counterpart Pikachu, Pichu is a sorcerer since he summons lightning down to defeat his enemies. Falco is just like Fox, meaning that he fits into the quickshot class quite perfectly since he has a lot of speed within his gameplay and a lot of accuracy to go alongside such speed. And in the games he's from, he is of course a pilot of several different vehicles, once again emphasizing the speed within his character, making him a great quickshot, mind you. Marth is a knight, since of course he has a sword, which automatically makes him a knight based on his weaponry alone, but not to mention he's also a hero-based character in Fire Emblem, so that heroicness behind his personality is also perfect for the making of a knight. Young Link is a knight for the same reasons that his regular Link counterpart is. Ganondorf, meanwhile, is a smasher. Despite using a sword for his smash attacks, his smash attacks prioritize power over all else. And of course, Ganondorf is all about absolutely pulverizing his enemies and dealing such huge chunks of damage to them that he only needs to deal with 3 hits before they are poofed out of existence. That kind of pulverization and annihilation that Ganondorf aims for makes him a smasher class, most definitely. Mewtwo is a sorcerer since she can fly, so it's very magical, hence fitting into the sorcerer class quite well. And not to mention, she also summons auras and black holes and stuff like that, which damage enemies, so the effect of her summoning stuff makes her that sorcerer class. Roy, once again, is a knight for having a sword at the helm and being quite a heroic figure within the Fire Emblem games. Mr. Game & Watch is a brawler. You could call him a smasher, since if he pulls out a 9 in his attacks, then it does a lot of damage to the opponents. But really, that's only a single move, and the rest of his moves really prioritize combos more so than anything, hence why Game & Watch is indeed a brawler. Meta Knight is a knight because, well, there's a knight in the name, and he also has a sword which fits the weaponry of a knight, and even the personality, despite the fact that Meta Knight is antagonistic, he's still quite honourable in battle and respects his opponent, which are personalities of a knight. So Meta Knight is very much fitting off this class and might just be the only villain from the game which is such a thing. Pit is a swashbuckler, since as you can tell he has 2 blades which he utilizes in combination with one another to create some really agilic based combinations, so there's no other class more fitting of Pit than the swashbuckler class. Zero Suit Samus is a ninja, since she's very agile in combat and tricks enemies into falling into her traps, so she can deal even more damage to them in terms of her agilic based combos. So once again, it's really her agility in battle, her skill, her maneuverability, and her strategy that makes her a ninja more so than anything else. Wario would be a smasher since he hits harder than most brawlers, but he does have a lot of combos up his sleeve, which is why you could always argue for him being a brawler. But personally, with the amount of power that this guy can cause upon his opponents, does make him a smasher in my personal opinion. Snake is a bazooka, since he literally pulls out bazookas as part of his smash attacks, and he's a weapons expert, using explosives to absolutely annihilate his enemies from a fair distance, and of course he does that utilizing such weapon expertise. You could also call him a ninja as well, because he's great at sneaking around and setting traps, but because of those traps evolve such explosive weaponry, it makes him more fitting for a bazooka than a ninja, hence why he's in the bazooka class and not the previously mentioned ninja class. Ike could easily be a smasher with how powerful his smash attacks are, since they prioritize power over speed. But Ike makes much better knight than a smasher, simply because he has a sword first of all, which of course makes his weaponry be fitting of a knight. But he's also pretty heroic in the Fire Emblem games, just like the Fire Emblem characters preceding him. Pokemon Trainer is a little strange since he has 3 different Pokemon, but between the 3 different Pokemon they only fall under 2 different classes, that being the Brawler for both Squirtle and Ivysaur alike, since they prioritize combos over speed or power. And then Charizard, on the other hand, would be of the Smasher class, since he is very powerful and sacrifices speed in the process to absolutely pulverize his enemies, hence why he is a Smasher and the other 2 are Brawlers. Diddy Kong could easily be a bazooka with the fact that he has a very powerful single-shot nut gun, and of course a barrel backpack which shows some sort of explosive expertise. However, Diddy Kong is much more of a brawler since he has some great aerial combos, which of course he utilizes to absolutely juggle his enemies inside of a combo, making him a very fitting brawler more so than a bazooka. Lucas, just like Ness, has a huge emphasis on summoning things in order to deal damage to his opponents, such as his PK Fire or his PK Freeze, hence why he makes a sorcerer just like Ness himself. Sonic is easily a quick shot. He is very speedy in terms of his combos and how fast he actually launches his attacks. And not to mention, he's also incredibly accurate with such speed, having homing attacks upon his opponents. So with the speed and accuracy combined, he is a quick shot, even if he doesn't utilize any sort of guns that fire from a distance. Because a quick shot is only defined by the weaponry they use. They are defined more so by their speed and their accuracy whilst utilizing such speed. And since Sonic has both of those traits, that makes him a quick shot in my personal eyes, even with the emphasis on melee attacks. King Dedede is yet another heavyweight within Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, making him yet another smasher since he prioritizes on absolutely pulverizing his enemies with very powerful attacks. Olimar is yet again another character who's very difficult to play since he doesn't really fit into any of the battle classes except for the Sorcerer class, which even then it's only a vague fit since he summons Pigmins from plucking them in the ground and uses them to do his bidding when it comes to defeating enemies. But that's the only thing of this guy that would make him any sort of Sorcerer. So again, he's not really fitting with the Sorcerer class, but it's the only battle class that he at least slightly fits into, so that's why Olimar is indeed here as part of the Sorcerer class. Lucario could easily be classified as a smasher since the more damage he takes, the harder he hits, which is a personality trait of a smasher since he's over time becoming much more powerful and much more efficient in absolutely pulverizing his enemies with such powerful attacks. However, I think he's more of a sorcerer since he's similar to Mewtwo in terms of summoning auras in order to deal damage to his opponents, hence why Lucario is a sorcerer instead of such smasher. Plus, he's only a smasher very rarely, since he's not always focused on power. He only focuses more on power once he's taken huge chunks of damage himself, mind you. Next up is Rob, who would easily fit into the Bazooka class since he has a huge variety of weaponry, ranging from lasers to top spinners, even explosive based attacks from his base, making him an explosive expert right out of the bat. And not only are these projectiles really good at comboing into one another, showing off that weapon mastery, but they're also very powerful and help keep Rob at distance from his opponents, making him the perfect bazooka. Toon Link is a knight for the same reasons Link and Young Link alike were knights. Wolf is not like Fox and Falco in terms of his personality. Sure, he still drives some sort of vehicles which could showcase some sort of speed within his personality traits. However, he uses those vehicles more so to try and defeat his opponents. He wants to pulverize them. He has a lusting for blood, you could say. And that also reflects in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate since his attacks are very powerful, much more so than Fox's and Falco's in, of course, sacrifice of speed. So that makes Wolf more of a smasher class than a quickshot class, which is why he's here in the smasher class and not such a quickshot class, mind you. Villager does have Lloyd, which is not only a projectile, but it's also pretty explosive, which would make him a bazooka. But, on the other hand, Villager does prioritize combos more than anything, which in my personal opinion makes him a brawler. Mega Man is a bazooka since he has a single weapon which prioritizes a lot of power over speed and accuracy, unlike a quick shot. And of course he also has multiple projectiles. His whole moveset is based around such multiple projectiles, and all of his combos rely on this weapon mastery from all of his projectiles. So there's no more fitting class for Mega Man than the bazooka class. Wii Fit Trainer has some really great combos up her sleeve, particularly in terms of her aerial game, making her the perfect brawler. Rosalina is an intergalactic being with a magic wand that she uses to magically communicate with her Luma, so they both act as a single unit. And of course she also has several other magic spells to draw in items around her, so she can use such things for her own bidding, and she even summons stars for a final smash. There is clearly no more fitting battle class for her than the Sorcerer class. Little Mac has no aerial combos whatsoever. He prioritizes on the ground, delivering some very hard-hitting smash attacks, making him none other than a smasher class. This is another one of those cases where the battle class is clearly stated within the name Gren Ninja. And Greninja makes a perfect ninja, first of all because he has ninja stars, but second of all because he's incredibly agile and has a bunch of combos up his sleeves. And he's a bit of a sneakster too. He has great movement around his enemies and of course makes them fall into his traps. So those are all traits of a ninja, hence why Greninja fits into this ninja class, and it's very fitting since it's also in his name as well. Palutena has a staff, making her the perfect sorcerer, since that's the traditional weaponry of a sorcerer. Not only that, though, she also summons all sorts of things, such as a reflecting wall, a huge explosion, and so the fact that she summons such things using her staff weaponry makes her the perfect sorcerer. Pac-Man would be a brawler since his attacks are a little bit lighter, but they are much more speedy and combo together very well, and those are very much the gameplay goals of a brawler. Robin is very different to the previous Fire Emblem characters mentioned because he's a bit of a nerd and studies books in order for spells that he can summon, and all of his special attacks revolve around such spells, making him more of a sorcerer than a knight despite the sword weaponry. But even then, the sword is only a temporary part of his attack pattern. He does eventually get a weaker sword, and at that moment is where most players would of course prioritize his spells if they haven't done so already, and that's very much a sorcerer based gameplay trait. Shulk is a knight. I've never played Xenoblade Chronicles, but I would presume that he is the good guy out to stop the bad guy, making him, of course, heroic. But one thing I can definitely tell you is that he is pretty courageous in terms of his fighting style, and of course he has that very fancy-looking sword. So in his Smash iteration alone, it would make him a knight, and I believe if I were to play the Xenoblade Chronicle games as well, I would find that his personality would also fit that of a knight. That is if, of course, Smash Ultimate is accurate to his Xenoblade Chronicles appearances. Bowser Jr. is a very 50-50 character because he could be considered a bazooka, having a huge plethora of weaponry that he has good mastery over, and they of course create explosions to absolutely annihilate his enemies from afar. However, he could also be a brawler since he has lots of combos up his sleeve, and of course such combos he prioritizes to brawl with his enemies. So that 50-50 split makes it very hard for me to determine a battle class for this guy, but I feel like Bazooka is more fitting due to the explosions he can create and the projectile weaponry that he has such mastery over. Duck Hunt Duo is yet another bazooka, purely because whilst he's not a very fitting bazooka, it's the only class he slightly fits into, a bit like Olimar, where he's not very fitting of many classes whatsoever. And the reason why I'd call him even vaguely a bazooka is because he does have a lot of weaponry which can explode and, cause all sorts of explosions from afar, and such weapon mastery is of course the trait of a bazooka. So that's why Duck Hunt Duo at least somewhat fits into the bazooka class. Ryu is absolutely a brawler since he has a lot of very sophisticated combos requiring a very sophisticated combination of inputs, mind you, which only masters can, master, and that allows you to, of course, brawl with your enemies, so that makes Ryu the perfect brawler. I haven't played any Final Fantasy games, so please bear with me here, but I believe Cloud is definitely a good guy in those games, and he's also pretty heroic and courageous as well. That's what I have came to believe from his Smash Ultimate counterpart, because that definitely seems to be his personality within the Super Smash Bros. Franchise. But most fitting of all is the fact he has that giant sword. So what other class is there for Cloud than the Knight class? Ryu is absolutely a brawler since he has a lot of very sophisticated combos requiring a very sophisticated combination of inputs, mind you, which only masters can, master, and that allows you to, of course, brawl with your enemies, so that makes Ryu the perfect brawler. Corrin is also a knight based on the sword weaponry she utilizes alone, and I would also presume that in Fire Emblem she is heroic and courageous just like the other Fire Emblem characters, but please do not quote me on that, since I haven't actually played any of the Fire Emblem games. I'm just trying to gather the small information I can of these games from their character representations in Smash Ultimate, basically speaking. So yes, from what I gather in Smash Ultimate, she seems pretty heroic, and she has, of course, the sword, making her a knight-based character. Plus, there's the armor too, which is an aesthetic of a knight. Bayonetta is a quick shot since her main weaponry is her dual guns that you can see her holding in her hands, or even when she's using her feet, she's still only using dual guns at a single time. But this firing of the guns even are very, very quick and very, very accurate, making her a quick shot. Not to mention even her combos when comboing together are very speedy. And accurate. So once again, just like Sonic, those two in combination with one another makes her the perfect quick shot, even if she is more melee based. But still, her dual guns and that sort of weaponry does make her very fitting of the quick shot class, just like the previously mentioned Sonic. Ridley is a smasher since he does everything in his power to absolutely pulverize his opponents. He drags them, he spikes them, he flips at them, he stomps them, literally anything that any opponent could do in rage to deal as much damage to an opponent as they could, Ridley does, and that makes him very much the perfect definition of a smasher. Inkling is easily the most obvious bazooka on the whole of this Super Smash Bros. Roster, simply because of the fact that she utilizes a single gun, which might sacrifice fire rate, but it does increase the power, and not to mention she's a huge weapon master, dealing damage with a huge plethora of different unique weapons, and a bunch of them also explode, showing that she has explosive expertise, and she of course can pulverize her opponents from afar, utilizing such heavy weaponry, making her the perfect bazooka. Simon, I was very close to making a Sentinel since he has a lot of agility in battle, but his weapon isn't dual-sided. So instead, I think this guy is much more fitting of the ninja class because he still has that agility to him. He can also set up traps using his bottles and his fire from such bottles, and of course he has a huge emphasis on projectiles, such as his cross, which acts almost like a ninja star. So between the agility and of course projectiles that he utilizes with such accuracy and such strategy even to trap opponents with, makes him a ninja more so than a sentinel. King K. Rool could easily be a bazooka based on his bazooka based weapon alone, since it's big and it deals a lot of damage, sacrificing speed and process. However, the rest of his moveset relies on him being melee based to absolutely pulverize his enemies with very powerful smashing based attacks, so he is much more fitting of a smasher as a result. Isabella, just like Villager, has a lot of combos that she can string together, making her the perfect brawler. Incineroar, however, prioritizes in power-based attacks, purely because it's very hard to actually create combos with Incineroar, but what it is very easy to do is deal huge chunks of damage at a single time with one slow yet very powerful attack, making Incineroar the perfect Smasher class character. Piranha Plant is easily a brawler since his projectile attacks are used so he can combo into his opponents with more aerial based moves or tilts. So with the kind of combos that you can set up with Piranha Plant, it makes him none other than a brawler. Joker here could be considered a quick shot since he has some very fast attacks which are also pretty accurate, but he's more so fitting of a brawler based on his gameplay alone, since he combos into enemies quite nicely, especially in the air and on the ground even. So the kind of combination capabilities you can have with a Joker makes him the perfect brawling class character. For hero, I absolutely had to go with the Goku outfit right here because it's the best one, but regardless, despite the aesthetic of the sword, the armor and the shield, of course, that's both aesthetic and weaponry combined, but as I digress, that would of course make for the aesthetic and weaponry of a knight. However, hero's priority is based around summoning things. Most hero players use for special attacks much more than the neutral attacks, and all of those special attacks have something to do with summoning something like a fireball or lightning, or in this case with down B, several different RNG elements. So the emphasis on summoning stuff makes hero more of a sorcerer than a knight, just like with Robin. Banjo-Kazooie is a bazooka since there are a lot of projectile-based attacks, and Kazooie can even be made into a gun type thing that's big and quite powerful. So it looks like a bazooka in of itself, but not to mention there's also some explosive eggs which showcase Banjo's skill in utilizing explosives. However, you could also say he's a brawler since he of course does have a lot of combos, but I find a bazooka more fitting based on the explosive nature alone and of course the aesthetics and weaponry of Kazooie whenever he's in that gun-based format. Finally, we have Terry Bogard. The character's not even out yet, but I can already tell he's going to be a brawler since he is from an arcade fighting game, and he looks like he's going to have a very similar gameplay style to Ryu. So the fact that not only does he have the aesthetics of a brawler based on the looks, but he also seems like his gameplay would focus on combinations more so than anything. It makes Terry Bogard a pretty perfect brawler. Finally, we have the Mii fighters. Now, they have no personality to speak of, so their battle classes are based purely off their weaponry alone, making the Mii Gunner a bazooka with the single weapon that fires from a distance with great power. The Swords fighter, being a knight since he has a sword, so says the name Swords fighter, and then of course the Mii brawler being, well, a brawler. Once again, it says so in the name. So guys, I sure hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please be sure to drop me a like. It took me forever to edit this. And one thing I did notice in editing is that there are so many brawlers. But what do you expect when one of the iterations in the Super Smash Bros. Franchise literally had the word brawl in it? Regardless, I'll be seeing you guys hopefully tomorrow for the next episode of Schooled. So thanks so much as always for watching, and I'll see you at that very moment. But until it arises, peace.